Hey everyone, tonight we're diving into something that history books rarely whisper about. A world where crowns came with secrets, where royal bedchambers held more intrigue than throne rooms, and where queens wielded power in ways that would make modern tabloids blush. We're exploring the forbidden desires and hidden scandals of medieval queens, women who rewrote the rules of love, lust, and ambition long before anyone dared call it empowerment. So, before we begin this journey into royal scandal, take a moment to hit that like button if you're ready for some seriously spicy medieval drama. And drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from tonight. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world for these tales of passion and power. Now settle in, maybe grab something to drink, and let's uncover the secrets that medieval chroniclers tried so hard to bury. Picture this. You're living in the 1300s, and the most powerful women in Europe aren't just sitting around embroidering tapestries and waiting for their husbands to come home from war. No, these queens are orchestrating coups, taking multiple lovers, and in some cases, allegedly disposing of inconvenient husbands with methods that would make a modern thriller writer jealous. Tonight, we're pulling back the velvet curtains on royal chambers that witnessed more drama than any soap opera. We're talking about queens who turned marriage into warfare, seduction into statecraft, and desire into a weapon sharper than any sword. These weren't passive princesses waiting to be rescued. These were women who grabbed power by the throat and refused to let go. Let's start with a woman who made headline news centuries before headlines existed. Joanna of Naples, crowned in 1343, looked at royal protocol and decided it was more of a suggestion than a rule. Where others saw tradition, she saw opportunity. Where others saw one husband, she saw several possibilities. And where others saw scandal, she saw Tuesday. Joanna married 4 times, which wasn't entirely unusual for medieval nobility, except for one tiny detail. Her husbands had this unfortunate habit of dying under mysterious circumstances. Her first husband, Andrew of Hungary, lasted barely a year before he was found hanging from a window in what officials called an unfortunate accident. Unofficially, people had questions. Joanna had none. But here's where the legend gets truly wild. Stories spread that Joanna had a trapdoor installed beneath her royal bed. Think of it as medieval problem-solving at its most creative. After a night of royal intimacy, the floor would allegedly open, sending her unfortunate companion tumbling into the castle moat below. Efficient, dramatic, and quite possibly invented by someone with a very active imagination and a serious grudge. Was it true? Probably not. But the fact that people believed it tells you everything about Joanna's reputation. She ruled Naples with elegance and theatrical flair that made her both admired and feared. Some called her charming, others called her dangerous. A few called her both while backing slowly toward the door. Through wars, papal outrage, political rivals, and more bedroom scandals than a Renaissance reality show, Joanna wore her crown like she wore her reputation. Boldly, unapologetically, and without a single care for what the chroniclers would write about her centuries later. By the time she died, strangled by enemies who could no longer tolerate her defiance, Joanna had created a legacy that transcended simple monarchy. She hadn't just been a queen, she'd been a force of nature wrapped in silk and crowned with gold. But Joanna was just the beginning. Tonight, we're meeting queens who made her look tame by comparison. Eleanor of Aquitaine didn't just live in the 12th century, she practically owned it. Queen of France, then Queen of England, mother of 2 future kings, and at one point the most powerful woman in Europe. Eleanor looked at the Game of Thrones and decided to flip the entire board while sipping wine and composing poetry about it. She married Louis VII of France at 15. He was deeply religious, painfully awkward, and had the romantic appeal of wet parchment. Eleanor, on the other hand, was witty, wealthy, and had the attention span of a hunting falcon. The marriage worked about as well as you'd expect. Louis dragged her on the Second Crusade, thinking a romantic pilgrimage through desert wastelands might strengthen their bond. Eleanor brought fine clothes, musicians, and possibly developed feelings for her handsome uncle, the Prince of Antioch. Rumors swirled faster than sand in a desert storm. Louis spent most of the trip frowning and praying. The marriage quietly died somewhere between Damascus and disappointment. After the annulment, Eleanor practically sprinted back to Aquitaine and remarried within months. This time to Henry Plantagenet, future King of England. He was 11 years younger, red-haired, wildly unpredictable, and absolutely her type. Their marriage produced 10 children, multiple wars, and one of the most passive-aggressive royal households in European history. But Eleanor wasn't content just birthing future monarchs. She was revolutionizing courtly culture. At her court in Poitiers, she championed courtly love, a romantic movement that encouraged noble ladies to be adored from afar by knights with emotional problems and excellent cheekbones. Of course, nobody followed the from afar part. Her court became a magnet for nobles with more passion than impulse control. When Henry's wandering eye grew tired of monogamy, Eleanor responded like any reasonable mother would. She helped her sons stage a full rebellion against their father. Henry was decidedly not amused. Eleanor found herself under house arrest for 16 years, which just gave her more time to write letters, plot revenge, and outlive her enemies through sheer stubborn determination. These queens didn't just break rules, they rewrote them entirely. They turned royal marriages into chess matches, bedchambers into battlegrounds, and desire into a form of political currency. They lived in an age when women were expected to be silent, obedient, and grateful for whatever scraps of power they were thrown. Instead, they grabbed crowns, commanded armies, and left behind legacies that still make historians blush. Their stories remind us that passion and power have always been dangerous companions. These weren't women who played it safe. They were queens who understood that sometimes the most rebellious act isn't overthrowing a kingdom. It's refusing to apologize for wanting more than what the world thinks you deserve. So, the next time someone tells you medieval times were simpler, remember these queens. They lived lives so scandalous, so ambitious, and so unapologetically bold that their secrets are still worth whispering about centuries later. Because some desires are too powerful to bury, and some queens are too legendary to forget. Thanks for joining me tonight in the shadows of medieval scandal. If these royal secrets fascinated you as much as they did me, make sure to subscribe for more tales from history's most intriguing dark corners, and let me know in the comments which of these queens surprised you most. Until next time, sweet dreams, and remember, the most interesting stories are always the ones they tried hardest to hide.